He gave them $1 million to see who would take the most, but when the receipts came back, his heart didn't break because his maid spent the money. It shattered because she apologized for saving lives. A billionaire surrounded by designer dresses and empty promises conducts one final test before proposing to his girlfriend. 3 women, 3 bank accounts, $1 million each, 24 hours to reveal their true nature. His glamorous girlfriend Isabella and her socialite shadow Sophia see a shopping spree. His invisible maid Rhea sees a terrifying responsibility. What they choose to spend it on exposes not just who they are, but who William Sterling has become, a man so rich in assets he's bankrupt in trust. One buys influence, one buys status, and one, she gives it all away to strangers, then trembles in fear that she's done something wrong. This is a story about vanity, authenticity, and the moment a man realizes the person he's been overlooking is the only real thing in his artificial world. Hello, family. Welcome to A DV Affairs. Please subscribe and leave a like for us. It means the world to us. Also, share this video to your friends and loved ones and turn on post notifications so you don't miss future videos from us. Thank you as you do so. Sit back and relax as we dive into the story.
William Sterling stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse, watching the city sprawl beneath him like a glittering circuit board. 43 floors up, and he'd never felt more trapped. Behind him, Isabella's laughter cut through the silence, sharp, performative, the kind of sound designed to be overheard. She was on the phone again, likely with Sophia, discussing which yacht party they'd grace with their presence this weekend. He didn't turn around. He'd learned months ago that turning around meant nothing. She wouldn't acknowledge him unless she needed his card. The penthouse was a masterpiece of modern architecture. Marble floors that caught the light like frozen water, furniture that cost more than most people's homes, art on the walls that museums had begged to borrow. Everything was perfect. Everything was cold. Everything was a carefully curated lie about what happiness looked like. "Baby, are you even listening?" Isabella's voice dragged him back. She stood in the doorway between the living room and the bedroom, one hand on her hip, her silk robe falling off her shoulder in a way that might have seemed accidental if she hadn't practiced it 1,000 times in mirrors. "I was thinking," William said. "Well, stop." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Nothing ever did. "Thinking makes you boring. Sophia and I need the jet next weekend. There's a pop-up in Monaco we absolutely cannot miss." "The jet? Unless you expect us to fly commercial like animals." She laughed again, waiting for him to laugh with her. When he didn't, her smile tightened. "What's wrong with you lately? You've been so weird." Weird. That's what she called it when he wanted a conversation that lasted longer than a credit card transaction. When he suggested they stay in for once, maybe cook dinner together, maybe talk about something real. She'd looked at him like he'd suggested they move to a cave. He'd proposed to her 3 months ago in his mind, had the ring designed, had the restaurant booked, had the future all mapped out. And then one night, lying in bed while she scrolled through her phone beside him, he'd realized something terrifying. He couldn't remember the last time she'd asked him how he was, the last time she'd looked at him, really looked at him, instead of through him at what he could provide. "Nothing's wrong," he lied. "Take the jet." "You're the best." She blew him a kiss that evaporated before it reached him and disappeared back into the bedroom, already calling Sophia to share the victory. William returned to the window. Somewhere in this penthouse, Rhea was probably scrubbing something that didn't need scrubbing, making herself invisible the way she always did. He'd hired her 2 years ago and couldn't recall ever having a full conversation with her. She was just there, part of the architecture, another perfect, silent piece of his perfectly silent life. His phone buzzed. His wealth manager, confirming another successful quarter, more zeros in accounts that already had too many zeros. He was 36 years old and had everything a man could want. So why did he feel like he was suffocating? William pressed his palm against the cold glass. Somewhere out there were people who laughed because they were happy, not because they wanted something. People who stayed because they wanted to, not because the penthouse had good lighting for Instagram photos. He pulled his hand back, leaving a handprint that would disappear in seconds. Just like everything else real in his life.
Ria's knees ached against the marble, but she kept scrubbing. The floor was already spotless. She'd cleaned it yesterday. But staying busy meant staying invisible, and invisible meant safe. "Oh my God, is she still here?" Sophia's voice drifted from the living room, followed by the click of expensive heels. "Doesn't she have like a home?" Isabella's laugh was wind chimes made of ice. "Apparently, this is cheaper than therapy. Look at her go. You'd think she was scrubbing the Sistine Chapel." Ria didn't look up. She'd learned that looking up invited interaction, and interaction with Isabella and Sophia was like stepping on glass. It only ever ended one way. She dipped her cloth back into the bucket, watching the water ripple and resettle. "I literally don't understand why William keeps her," Sophia's voice continued, her voice carrying that particular pitch of someone who wanted to be overheard. "She's so, I don't know, depressing? Like, smile once in a while, it's not that hard." "She probably doesn't know how," Isabella said. "Poor people are always so serious about everything." They laughed together, a practiced duet, and moved toward the kitchen. Ria heard the refrigerator open, heard them pulling out the sparkling water she'd stocked that morning, heard them complain it wasn't cold enough. It was exactly as cold as it had been yesterday when they'd called it perfect. She finished the floor and stood slowly, careful not to let her knees crack. 28 years old, and her body already felt ancient. That's what 3 jobs did. That's what sleeping 4 hours a night did. That's what carrying the weight of someone else's life on your shoulders did. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out with wet hands, already knowing what it would say. "Payment overdue. Account will be sent to collections in 48 hours. Ria closed her eyes. $43,000. That's what her mother's hospital bills had ballooned to after the stroke. That's what stood between her mother staying in the rehabilitation center that was actually helping her speak again, or being transferred to the state facility where patients wore the same expression as abandoned buildings. She'd been making payments. Every spare cent from her 3 jobs went into that bottomless pit of medical debt. But spare cents didn't exist when rent was due, when her mother needed medications, when life kept presenting bills like a dealer presenting cards, infinite, inevitable, rigged. "Ria!" Isabella's voice cut through her thoughts. "These counters are filthy. What do we even pay you for?" Ria walked to the kitchen, examined the counters she'd cleaned an hour ago. There wasn't a crumb, not a smudge. Isabella stood beside Sophia, both of them in matching workout sets that cost more than Ria's monthly salary, watching her with the casual cruelty of people who'd never had to choose between eating and electricity. "I'll clean them again," Ria said quietly. "See that you do." Isabella turned back to Sophia. "Anyway, so I was thinking we should do another photo shoot on the balcony. The light at sunset is just insane up here." They left, trailing perfume and dismissal. Ria pulled out the cleaning spray she didn't need and wiped down counters that didn't need wiping. In her pocket, her phone buzzed again. Final notice. She thought about asking Mr. Sterling for an advance, thought about it the way you think about jumping off a bridge, desperately, briefly, before survival instinct kicked in. You didn't ask billionaires for favors. You didn't remind them you existed. You did your job, took your paycheck, and hoped that invisibility was enough to keep you employed. Ria looked at her reflection in the polished countertop, tired eyes in a tired face, under a starched white headband. 48 hours until collections. She went back to scrubbing things that didn't need scrubbing. William had made billion-dollar decisions before. Acquired companies, destroyed competitors, moved markets with his signature. But standing in his living room at 9 in the morning, about to conduct a test that felt more like surgery on his own heart, his hands were shaking. Isabella sat on the white leather sofa, Sophia beside her like a mirror image, both scrolling through their phones with the blank focus of people who'd forgotten the world existed outside their screens. Neither had asked why he'd called them here. Neither seemed to care. Ria stood near the kitchen doorway, hands folded,
eyes down. She always looked like she was preparing to apologize for existing. "I need to tell you something," William said. Isabella glanced up for half a second. "Can it wait? We're planning brunch." "It can't wait." He pulled out his phone, fingers moving across the screen with mechanical precision. "I'm transferring $1 million into each of your accounts, right now." That got their attention. Sophia's head snapped up. Isabella's mouth fell open. Even Rhea looked up, confusion breaking through her careful neutrality. "You're what?" Isabella stood, suddenly animated in a way she never was when they were alone. "Baby, are you serious?" "Completely serious." He watched their faces, cataloging reactions like a scientist observing specimens. $1 million each. You have 24 hours to spend it however you want. No questions asked, no judgment. Do whatever you want with it. "Oh my God!" Sophia grabbed Isabella's arm. "Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God!" Isabella was already pulling out her phone, hands trembling. "This is real? Like actually real?" "Check your accounts." They did. The silence lasted 3 seconds before they started screaming. High-pitched, champagne cork popping screams that made William's teeth ache. They jumped up and down, clutching each other, phones pressed to their chests like sacred texts. "We need to call the boutique," Isabella gasped. "That dress I wanted, the one from Milan." "The jet," Sophia said. "We can book the jet to Paris. Oh God, we can do Paris and Milan in one day." They were already moving toward the bedroom, voices overlapping, planning their assault on luxury like generals planning a war. They didn't thank him, didn't ask why, didn't even look back. William turned to Rhea. She hadn't moved. Her phone was in her hand, screen lit, but she was staring at it like it was a bomb. "Rhea?" "Mr. Sterling, Her voice cracked. "I think there's been a mistake." "There's no mistake." "But this is—" She looked up at him, and he saw something he hadn't expected. Terror. Pure, undiluted terror. "This is $1 million." "I know." "I can't." She was shaking. "Sir, I can't accept this. This has to be an error. I'll call the bank. I'll have them reverse it." "It's not an error." He kept his voice gentle, watching her clutch the phone like it was burning her. 24 hours, Rhea. Spend it however you want. Consider it a bonus." $1 million bonus? Her laugh was half sob. "Mr. Sterling, I don't understand. What do you want me to do?" "Whatever you want to do." From the bedroom, Isabella's voice rang out. "We need to call Cartier right now, before they close for private appointments." Rhea looked toward the sound, then back at William. Her eyes were wet. "I don't know what to do with this." "Then figure it out. 24 hours starts now." He walked away before she could argue, before he could see the panic he'd just unleashed. Behind him he heard Isabella and Sophia's laughter, bright and sharp as breaking crystal, and underneath it, barely audible, Rhea's whispered voice. Oh God, what do I do?" The black car hadn't even stopped moving before Isabella flung the door open. "Go, go, go!" She grabbed Sophia's hand, and they spilled onto Fifth Avenue like champagne from a shaken bottle, laughing so hard they could barely breathe. "We have 24 hours, and I am not wasting a single second." Sophia was already on her phone, fingers flying. "I'm texting Antoine at Bergdorf. Private showing right now. If he says he's booked, I'm telling him we just got $1 million each, and watch how fast that booking disappears." They burst through the doors of Bergdorf Goodman like conquering generals, and immediately the energy shifted. The sales associates could smell money the way sharks smelled blood, and within seconds they were surrounded by tailored smiles and strategic compliments. "Ladies, welcome. How can we make your day extraordinary?" "We need everything," Isabella said, spreading her arms wide. "Everything you have that's exclusive, limited, impossible to get. We're not here for the normal stuff. We're here for the things you keep in the back for actual billionaires." The associate's smile sharpened. "Right this way." They were led to a private room where champagne appeared as if summoned by magic. Dresses began flowing in on hangers carried by assistants who moved like priests bearing sacred relics. Valentino, Balmain, custom Givenchy pieces that hadn't been released yet. Isabella held up a silver sequined gown that caught the light like liquid mercury. "Oh my God." Sophia gasped. Wait, they have two? They have two. They looked at each other and screamed. Matching silver dresses, backless floor length covered in hand-sewn crystals that cost more per square inch than most people's wedding rings. They were the kind of dresses that didn't just enter a room, they rewrote it. These are $15,000 each, the associate said carefully. We'll take them, Isabella and Sophia said in unison, already pulling out their phones. 2 hours later, they were drowning in shopping bags. 4 dresses each, 3 pairs of shoes from Louboutin, jewelry from Cartier that came with its own security escort to the car. Isabella bought a handbag that had a 2-year waiting list, simply because she could skip the line with the right amount of money. Dubai, Sophia said suddenly, scrolling through her phone in the back of the car as they headed to their next stop. We need to go to Dubai. When? Now, tonight, tomorrow, I don't care. She turned the phone around, showing Isabella images of a new members-only club that had opened on top of the Burj Khalifa. Look at this. You can't even get in unless you're on the list, and the list costs $100,000 just to join. Isabella's eyes lit up. Book it. Book the flights, book the hotel, book the club membership. Both of us. Private jet? Obviously private jet. Commercial is for people who have to ask permission to spend money. They called the concierge service that rich people used when they needed miracles performed immediately. Within an hour, they had a jet booked for the following evening, a suite at the Burj Al Arab, and VIP memberships to 3 clubs that normal humans would never see the inside of. You know what this is? Isabella said, holding up her phone to take a selfie with Sophia, both of them surrounded by shopping bags, champagne glasses raised. This is an investment. We're investing in our image, in our brand, in our future. Exactly, Sophia said, pouting for the camera. People don't respect you unless you look like you're worth respecting. And now we look like we're worth $1 million. They posted the photo with the caption, "Blessed, grateful, living our best lives." Within minutes, the likes started rolling in, hundreds of them, then thousands. See, Isabella said, watching the numbers climb, this is what the money is for. This is how you turn cash into power. Neither of them noticed that Rhea wasn't answering her phone. Neither of them wondered what the maid was doing with her $1 million. They were too busy planning which designer they'd visit next.
Rhea sat on the M15 bus with her phone clutched in both hands, staring at the numbers on the screen like they might rearrange themselves into something that made sense. $1 million. Her reflection in the window looked back at her, tired, confused, terrified. Around her, the city moved in its familiar rhythm. A woman with 3 grocery bags, a man in a hospital uniform ending his shift, a teenage boy with headphones nodding to music only he could hear. Regular people, real people, people like her. People who didn't have $1 million appear in their account like a hallucination. She'd spent the first hour after Mr. Sterling's announcement sitting on the floor of the supply closet, hyperventilating. This had to be a test, a mistake, a trap. Rich people didn't just give away money. They especially didn't give it to maids who scrubbed their floors and made themselves invisible. But the money was real. She'd checked 17 times. The bus jerked to a stop at Mount Sinai, and Rhea stood automatically. She'd been coming here every Thursday for 3 months, visiting her mother during physical therapy. But today wasn't Thursday, and she wasn't here for her mother. She was here because 2 weeks ago she'd overheard a woman sobbing in the hospital cafeteria. Rhea had been getting coffee, trying to stay awake between shifts, when the woman's voice broke through. They won't do the surgery without payment up front. $42,000. I don't have $42,000. My daughter is 8 years old, and they're telling me to go home and wait for her kidney to fail completely. The woman's friend had held her while she cried. Rhea had left without her coffee, the number burning in her mind. $42,000. The same amount her mother owed. The same impossible mountain. Now Rhea walked to the billing office with legs that felt like water. I need to make a payment, she told the woman behind the desk, for patient Sarah Chen, room 437. Are you family?
No, I'm just... Rhea's throat closed. I'm someone who wants to help. It took 20 minutes to convince them she was serious, another 10 to process the payment. When the receipt printed, Rhea stared at it until the numbers blurred. Payment received, $42,000. Account balance, $0. She left before anyone could ask questions, before they could find the mother and tell her someone had saved her daughter's life, before gratitude could make this real in a way that would break her. The second stop was harder. St. Anthony's Community Kitchen operated out of a church basement in the Bronx. Rhea had been volunteering there for 4 years, serving meals every Saturday to people who'd run out of everything except the will to keep breathing. Last month, Father Michael had gathered the volunteers with tears in his eyes. The building owner was doubling their rent. They had 60 days before they'd have to close. Rhea found Father Michael in his office, surrounded by bills and prayers that hadn't been answered. "Rhea, it's not Saturday." "I need to pay your rent," she interrupted, "for the year, all of it, right now." He blinked. "I don't understand. I came into some money, unexpected, and Her voice cracked. "You feed 200 people a day, Father. You can't close. You can't." "Rhea, the rent is $84,000 for the year. I know. I asked." She watched him process this, watched confusion become comprehension, become something that looked like witnessing a miracle. He started to cry, and then she was crying too, and somewhere in that small office filled with unpaid bills, something shifted. When Rhea left, her account showed $874,000 remaining. She sat at the bus stop, hands shaking, staring at the number. She thought about Isabella and Sophia, probably in some boutique right now, buying things that would be out of fashion in 6 months. She thought about Mr. Sterling, alone in his penthouse, surrounded by everything and connected to nothing. She thought about the mother who'd get to keep her daughter. She thought about 200 people who'd still have somewhere to eat. And then she burst into tears because she had no idea if she had just done something beautiful or if she had just gotten herself fired for being stupid enough to give away money that probably wasn't really hers to give. The bus came. Rhea got on. She had 18 hours left.
The penthouse felt different at sunset. Golden light poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows, turning everything it touched into something precious and temporary. William stood with his back to the view, watching 3 women arrange themselves in his living room like pieces on a chessboard. Isabella and Sophia arrived together, as always. They swept in wearing matching silver dresses that caught the light with every movement, turning them into human disco balls. The dresses were beautiful in the way that expensive things are beautiful, flawless, cold, designed to be photographed rather than lived in. Neither of them greeted him. Isabella collapsed onto the white sofa, immediately pulling out her phone. Sophia draped herself on the adjacent chair, doing the same. Their thumbs moved in identical rhythms, scrolling, tapping, checking notifications like prospectors panning for gold. "The lighting in here is insane right now," Sophia said, angling her phone for a selfie. "Bella, get in this." They posed together, silver dresses gleaming, faces arranged in practiced expressions of effortless joy. Click, check, filter, post. The whole transaction took 30 seconds. 43 likes already, Isabella murmured. Not bad. William watched them, these women who lived in his home, wore clothes he paid for, existed in his orbit like satellites that had forgotten what they were orbiting. They hadn't asked about the money, hadn't asked about the test, hadn't asked about anything except whether the lighting was good enough for social media. "Where's the maid?" Sophia asked, not looking up from her screen. "Her name is Rhea," William said quietly.
Right, whatever. Where is she? As summoned, the soft footsteps came from the hallway. Rhea appeared in the doorway, and William felt something in his chest constrict. She was still in her uniform, not the silver dress, not designer shoes, not jewelry that cost more than cars, just her gray dress with the white collar, her white headband, her sensible shoes that squeaked slightly on the marble. She looked exactly as she had yesterday and the day before and every day since he'd hired her, except for her eyes. Her eyes looked haunted. She stood at the edge of the room, hands clasped in front of her, shoulders drawn in like she was trying to make herself smaller. Her gaze fixed on the floor, and William realized with a jolt that she looked terrified. "Rhea, come in." She took 3 steps forward and stopped, as if there were an invisible wall she couldn't cross. Behind her, the city sprawled in the sunset, skyscrapers turning copper and gold. In front of her, Isabella and Sophia glowed in their silver dresses, phone screens reflecting off their faces like they were lit from within by something synthetic. The contrast was so stark it almost hurt to look at. "Okay, so are we doing something or can we go?" Isabella said, still scrolling. "We have dinner reservations at 8. "We're in Dubai tomorrow," Sophia added. "Dubai?" William asked. "Obviously Dubai. There's a club opening. Very exclusive, very us." Isabella finally looked up, and her gaze swept over Rhea with the casual dismissal of someone noticing furniture. "Why is she here anyway? Does she need to clean something?" Rhea's hands tightened, knuckles going white, her shoulders pulled in further, like she was trying to disappear into herself. William looked at the 3 women, Isabella and Sophia in their silver armor, bathed in artificial light from their phones. Rhea in her gray uniform, bathed in the dying light of the real sun. He pulled out his own phone and opened the banking app. 24 hours ago, he'd transferred $3 million. Now it was time to see what that money had revealed. His finger hovered over the transaction history. "Let's talk about how you spent the money," he said. Isabella's smile was sharp as broken glass. "Oh, you're gonna love this." Rhea closed her eyes.
William's phone screen glowed in his hand, a digital confession written in transactions. He scrolled through Isabella's account first, each line a small incision. Bergdorf Goodman, $15,000. He looked up. A dress? 2 dresses, actually, Isabella corrected, flipping her hair. Custom pieces, they're investments. Cartier, $28,000. A bracelet. You can't expect me to wear costume jewelry. Private jet to Dubai, $85,000. Sophia leaned forward. That was a charter, not ownership. We were being responsible. William kept scrolling, his voice flat as he read the itemized list of vanity. Louboutin, Belmain, club membership, $100,000 for a club membership? "It's exclusive," Isabella said, her tone suggesting he was stupid for not understanding. "You can't buy access like that." "Well, actually you can, but most people can't. We're investing in our social capital, in our brand. Some people just don't understand how wealth works." "I understand perfectly." William's jaw tightened. "You spent $947,000 in 24 hours on things designed to make other people think you're important." "We are important," Sophia snapped. "More important than we were yesterday, thanks to that money." William turned to Sophia's account. More of the same. Designer clothes, luxury hotels, VIP status at places that existed solely to make rich people feel special. Another 900,000 gone, evaporated into the ecosystem of expensive nothing. Isabella stood, silver dress shimmering. "I don't appreciate the judgment in your voice. You gave us money with no strings attached. We spent it. That was the deal." "You're right," William said quietly. That was the deal. He looked at Rhea. She stood frozen near the kitchen doorway, hands clasped so tightly her fingers had gone white. She hadn't moved since he'd started reading the accounts, hadn't spoken, hadn't even seemed to breathe. William opened her transaction history. The first entry made his breath catch. Mount Sinai Hospital, $42,000, patient account payment. Rhea's head dropped lower. St. Anthony's Community Kitchen, $84,000, annual rent payment. Her shoulders started shaking. Queen's Family Shelter, $50,000, operating expenses. His voice cracked. Women's Crisis Center, $40,000, food bank, $35,000, scholarship fund. Rhea, you endowed a scholarship fund? I'm sorry, she whispered. William looked up. What? I'm so sorry. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I know I wasn't supposed to. I know it was meant for me, but I couldn't. Her voice broke completely. I couldn't keep it, not when that mother was going to lose her daughter, not when Father Michael was going to have to close the kitchen, not when there were people suffering and I had the money to help them. You spent every dime, William said, stunned. $963,000, she said, her voice barely audible. I kept $37,000 for my mother's medical bills. I know I should have kept it all. I know it was supposed to be for me, but I couldn't. She was sobbing now, words tumbling out between gasps. I couldn't sleep knowing I had money to save people, and I was keeping it. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please don't fire me. I'll pay it back. I'll work for free. Rhea, please, my mother needs the insurance from this job. I can't lose this job. I'm sorry I gave your money away. I'm sorry I'm not like them. She gestured blindly towards Isabella and Sophia. I'm sorry I don't know how to buy the right things. I'm sorry. Stop. William's voice cut through her spiral. He crossed the room in 3 strides, stopping just in front of her. Stop apologizing. She looked up at him, face wet with tears, eyes full of terror. You're apologizing, he said, voice shaking, for saving lives. Behind them, Isabella's laugh was knife-sharp. Oh my God, this is insane. She literally threw away $1 million on random strangers, and you're acting like she did something noble. She's an idiot. William didn't turn around. He couldn't look away from Rhea's face, from the woman who'd been given everything and given it all away, then apologized for her generosity like it was a crime. His heart didn't just break, it shattered.
Get out. William's voice was quiet, but it cut through the penthouse like a blade through silk. Isabella stopped mid-laugh. What? Get out of my home. He turned to face her, and something in his expression made her step back. Both of you. Now. Baby, you're being dramatic. Don't call me that. William's voice was still quiet, still controlled, but there was something underneath it now, something that had been building for months, maybe years, finally breaking through. You're not my girlfriend anymore. You're not anything to me anymore. The room went silent. Even Sophia's phone stopped clicking. You're breaking up with me? Isabella's voice climbed an octave. Over this? Over her? She pointed at Rhea without looking at her. Over the maid who just threw away $1 million on people she doesn't even know? Yes. You're insane. Maybe. William pulled something from his pocket, a small velvet box that had been sitting in his desk drawer for 3 months. He opened it. The diamond caught the sunset light, throwing rainbows across the marble floor. I was going to propose to you. I was going to ask you to spend your life with me. Isabella's eyes locked onto the ring. For a moment, her whole face transformed with want. But I realized something, William continued, snapping the box shut. I don't know you. I've spent 2 years with you, and I don't know a single true thing about you. I don't know what makes you happy beyond a credit card limit. I don't know what you care about beyond how you look in photographs. I don't know what you do for someone who couldn't do anything for you.
That's not fair. You spent $1 million in 24 hours and didn't think about anyone but yourself, not once. He looked at Sophia. Either of you. You turned money into status, into things that will be worthless in 5 years, into Instagram posts that will be forgotten in 5 minutes. And what did she turn it into? Sophia's voice was vicious. Receipts from a soup kitchen? Congratulations. She's poor and she's going to stay poor because she doesn't understand how money works. She turned it into lives. William's voice broke on the word. A child who gets to keep her kidney, a shelter that won't close, people who won't go hungry. She turned money into meaning. And you, he looked at Isabella, you turned it into a dress you'll wear once. Isabella's face went hard. You know what? Fine. I don't need this. I don't need you. There are 100 men in this city who would die to be with me. Then go find them. I will. She grabbed her purse, the $15,000 one she'd bought yesterday, and started toward the door. Sophia followed, both of them moving with the sharp, brittle energy of people who'd been rejected and pretending they'd done the rejecting. At the door, Isabella turned back. You're going to regret this. When you're alone in this empty penthouse with no one but the help, you're going to remember what you gave up. I already know what I gave up. 2 years I'll never get back. They left. The door slammed hard enough to rattle the windows. The sound of their heels clicked down the hallway, fading into nothing. Silence filled the penthouse like water filling a broken ship. William turned back to Rhea. She hadn't moved. She was still standing in the same spot, tears drying on her cheeks, hands still clasped like she was praying or preparing for execution. "Rhea," he said softly. "Am I fired?" Her voice was small. "No." He crossed to her slowly like she was something wild that might bolt. "No, you're not fired. You're not in trouble. You're—" He had to stop, had to breathe, had to figure out how to say what he was feeling. "You're the only person in my life who's real." She looked up at him, confusion breaking through the fear. "This was a test. I gave you money to see what you would do with it, to see who you really were when you thought no one was watching." "I failed," she whispered. "You passed. Everyone else failed. You passed. You're the only one who passed." Rhea stared at him like he was speaking a language she didn't know. "You gave it away," William said. "All of it. You could have changed your life, and you chose to change other people's lives instead. I'm sorry. Stop apologizing." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hands. They were shaking. Everything about her was shaking. "You have nothing to apologize for. Nothing. Do you understand me?" She shook her head. "I don't understand any of this." "I know," William squeezed her hands gently, "but I need you to hear me. You are not invisible. You are not nothing. You are not less than them." He gestured toward the door where Isabella and Sophia had vanished. "You're more. You're so much more." Rhea's face crumpled, and she started crying again, but this time it sounded different. This time it sounded like something breaking open rather than breaking apart. The sun finished setting behind them. The city lights came on below, 1,000,000 points of borrowed light, and in the penthouse, for the first time in years, something felt real.
6 months later, William Sterling walked through the doors of Mount Sinai Hospital wearing jeans and a sweater his mother would have called unremarkable. No designer labels, no silk tie, no watch that cost more than a car. Just clothes that were comfortable, that he'd chosen because he liked them, not because they communicated his net worth to strangers. Beside him, Rhea carried a folder of paperwork, her other hand wrapped in his. She still wasn't used to that, the hand-holding in public, the way he looked at her like she was something precious, the fact that she no longer scrubbed his floors but sat beside him at board meetings. Some mornings she still woke up expecting to find herself back in the gray uniform, expecting the last 6 months to dissolve like a dream. But then William would roll over and smile at her, sleep soft and genuine, and she'd remember. This was real. "You ready?" he asked as they approached the elevator. "I don't know," she admitted. "What if she doesn't want to see us?" "Then we respect that and leave." He squeezed her hand. "But I think she'll want to meet the person who saved her daughter's life." The Sterling Foundation had been Rhea's idea, though she'd been terrified to suggest it.
What if we used your money, our money, she'd corrected herself, still stumbling over the word our, to do what I did, but bigger, better? What if we found all the people falling through the cracks and caught them? William had looked at her like she just handed him a map to a place he'd been searching for his whole life. Now the foundation funded medical debt relief, kept community kitchens open, paid for scholarships, supported shelters. They'd helped 247 families in 6 months. William had sold the penthouse, too many ghosts, too much marble, and they'd bought a brownstone in Brooklyn with a kitchen that got morning light and neighbors who knocked on the door to borrow sugar. He'd never been happier in his life. The elevator opened on the pediatric floor. A nurse directed them to room 437, and through the window, William saw a little girl with dark hair sitting up in bed, coloring. Beside her, a woman, the mother Rhea had overheard crying 6 months ago, was reading aloud from a picture book. Rhea knocked softly. The mother looked up, and her face went through a series of transformations, confusion, recognition, and then something that looked like witnessing a miracle for the second time. "You!" she breathed, standing. "You're the one who... They told me someone anonymous paid for Sarah's surgery, but you..." Her voice broke. "You saved her life. Rhea started, but the mother was already moving, already wrapping her arms around Rhea like she was something holy. "She's thriving," the mother said through tears. "The transplant worked. She's going home next week. Because of you. Because you..." She couldn't finish. William watched Rhea hug this stranger back, watched them cry together, watched his girlfriend, his partner, his compass, the realest thing in his life, give this mother the gift of being seen, being thanked, being told that her choice mattered. The little girl looked up from her coloring. "Are you the angel?" Rhea laughed, wiping her eyes. "I'm not an angel, sweetheart. Mama says an angel saved me." "Not an angel," William said softly. "Just someone who knew that people were more important than things." They stayed for an hour. Sarah showed them her drawings. The mother told them about the life her daughter would get to live, school, friends, birthdays, all the ordinary miracles that almost didn't happen. When they left, Rhea was quiet in the elevator. "You okay?" William asked. "I keep thinking about that day, when you gave me the money. I was so scared. I thought I'd done something wrong. I thought you'd fire me for giving it away. I almost married someone who spent it on a dress." "I know." She looked up at him. "I still don't understand why you chose me." "Because you didn't choose yourself." He pulled her close as the elevator descended. "Everyone else in my life was taking. You were the only one giving. You showed me what wealth actually looks like." "What does it look like?" He kissed her forehead. "Like a little girl who gets to grow up, like a soup kitchen that stays open, like coming home to someone who sees you, not your bank account." The elevator doors opened to the lobby. Outside, the city moved in its relentless rhythm. Millions of people chasing millions of dreams, most of them chasing the wrong things. William and Rhea walked out together, hand in hand, heading back to their brownstone in Brooklyn, where the neighbors knew their names and the kitchen got morning light, and there wasn't a single piece of marble anywhere. He'd spent 36 years building a fortune. It took Rhea exactly 24 hours to show him what fortune was actually for. They walked into the afternoon sun, two people who'd found something that couldn't be bought, sold, or posted on Instagram. They'd found each other. And that, William thought, as Rhea laughed at something he said, her whole face lighting up, that was the real investment, the only one that mattered, the only one that lasted.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the others we have on our channel. They are as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine, so do check it out. We love you.